But when I made it back home, I couldn't talk about this to anybody for 6 months. 6 months. Because it had that much of a weight on me that every time I thought about it or brought it up, I could feel something. I could feel a remnant of energy around me or over me or whatever. And sometimes I still do. These things have power in their stories, and they have power in names and power in places. And I hold true to that thought. I was pagan for a while. I will admit I no longer am. But I do believe in multiple things and spirits and entities, and I know something's out there. I don't know how they're organized, I don't know what they are, but I know there is a good and there is a bad, or at least a light and a dark. And this thing had every intention of hurting me. When I say I'm a believer, I mean it. When someone comes to me and they're like, you wouldn't believe me, I'm like, try me. Come on, tell me. I'm happy to help you. I'm what they call an empath. And it's a weird label for me to go out throwing about, but it's one that I've come to own and cherish. Because recently, the reason I've brought this all up again in spooky season galore is because I've had instances where it's happening. And I've never had things like this. I've felt emotions, I've felt presences, but I have never seen something the way I saw something. And recently, it was a few times. So recently, by recent I mean this past year, I got a tattoo of a friend who passed away due to personal choice. Um, and that was in January of 2020. And every year, every time I thought about him, it was just an immense amount of grief. And normally I can get through grieving periods quickly. Like I said, I have a weird relationship with death. But that one, Tylo hit home. And whether he realized it or not, but he was like a big brother to me. He taught me what a real friend does, and what they look like, and how they act, and how they treat you. And I respected the shit out of him. And you know what? The day I learned that he'd passed away, I was like, I gotta get a tattoo for this man. And I just kept having this feeling of, you don't know him well enough. You weren't that close to him. You have no right. And so I never did. 3 years later, the notion got so strong that I called on an old friend. Shout out to Aldo. I will link his art and his Instagram page down below. But this man came through. And I explained to him how I felt. I was like, man, it's been so hard for me. And I want something that's a piece of him and yet still me. And it shows my relationship with him. Because when I was a pagan, they had ancestral night and they had a bunch of other certain rites and things that you would do. And the one thing I always did for him was I used to have this glass bowl that I would put liquid offerings in, like water and wine, that kind of thing. And for Tylo, he was an edge, so he did not take part in drugs at all. So I would always pour him a Monster, which was his favorite drink. Like he always had a Monster, and or Arizona tea. And I remember I would get these feelings like someone was happy about it. Someone felt right, and I always thought that was just me. It's just how I'm feeling. And as time went on, I realized that was Tylo, and he does visit from time to time. He had a hard life, but I want him to know that he's loved. He always had a bag of gummy worms with him wherever he went. And so when I first met him, I couldn't remember his name for the life of me. I have a terrible memory. It's nothing against anybody. I can't remember names for the life of me. So I try and use nicknames if people have them. Like I lock on. Or if I really want to learn this person's name, I will try and call them at any chance I get. So for Tylo, I looked at him one day and I was like, man, can I just call you Gummy? Is that all right with you? Because you always have that. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. So I called him Gummy, and he would respond to it. And so I always knew him as Gummy. And so Aldo, man, shout out. I'll also show you guys the photo here in a second. But he drew me this awesome sketch, and I was like, that's fucking it. That's what's up. That's what I'm putting on. It was my first color tattoo, my first big tattoo. And man, I called this shop that I know, and I was like, hey, I need someone to help me out with this. This is a really big piece. It's something that means a lot to me. And my artist, man, she's an OG. She hops in. She goes, I know I'm the only one that answered the phone, but this hits home with me. Can I please do it for you? And I was like, fuck yeah. So we did it. It took like 2.5 hours, I think, maybe three. And I only had one break, a little bit of numbing cream halfway through. It was beautifully done. I also had a Reiki master. I don't know how you pronounce it. I pronounce it Reiki, but it might be Reiki. I don't know. It's like Reiki, however like whatever. And he met me and he goes, I feel that it would be really good for you if I did this. For if I did a session for you because this is a lot of feeling and energy into this one tattoo. I was like, I would appreciate that. Needless to say, Tylo visited, and he had a few last minute edits into his tattoo via his own personal choice. And I'm thankful for it. And I'm thankful that he was able to reach out to me and tell me. But every now and then I'll catch my cat, my black cat, he's Nova, and he chose me. Like, I have a video of it and everything. He put his little paw on me, and that day my heart was sealed. Like, he stole me. But he knows when Tylo's here. Because every now and then I'll look around and I'm like, Nova, where are you? And he'll be sitting at the bottom of the stairs looking up at our room, which is where I am right now, is my room. And I'm like, who's there? And he doesn't look. And I go, is it Tylo? And he'll look at me. And he'll look back up. And I'm like, yeah, it's Tylo. And the Reiki master confirmed that whenever he does that, it definitely is. And that makes me really thrilled to know. And ever since I got this tattoo, that grief, it's still there, but it's not as strong. Because, like, all of that pain in it evaporated instantly. I was so happy with it, and Tyler was too. I just know it. And like we were both saying, "Oh, that's sick," like like it just makes me so happy to know that. And after that, I had to block it a little bit because it was so intense of emotion. Uh, I'm not gonna go into it, but basically I had to block out a lot of my empathic ability for a little while. And then I started watching some videos of...
What's up, guys? It's Sam Colby. And welcome to Hell.
And I invited my boyfriend to join me, and man, we both love it. Like, I don't know what it is, but we just bond over that. And so we're watching this, and as time went on, and we watched Sam and Colby go on, we're realizing how in-depth and connected they're getting to this, like, these ghost hunting and paranormal events, and I'm like, man, that's crazy. I wish I could do that. Recently, I saw my grandfather. Not the one that recently passed away. My grandfather from when I was 4 passed away. But I know how much he loved me and cared for me. Like, I have his picture downstairs in my room, one of my other rooms, and it's of him holding me when I was a baby. And I was we were recently visiting my grandma and her husband. She remarried, and so I'm cutting up all my stuff. I'm trying to make us food. I'm like, we're going up to the ranch with my family, and I was like, oh god, I gotta make dinner for us. Like, I just need to. And so I'm like trying to get this all done because it it was such a wreck. And I'm in the middle of like putting stuff away or cleaning up. Yeah. And I didn't hear shuffling, but I saw a figure, but it was a little taller than I expected. And I couldn't get a clear enough picture, but it was a fuzzy whitish image of a tall man. So I kind of looked up and I looked over just in time to see. So there was a pillar here, there's an archway here that you can see out into the dining room, but the pillar just barely covers the double doors that go into the den or the computer area of my grandmother's house. And my grandmother has lived in this house even before my other grandfather passed away. So she's been there for a while. She's been there for a while, okay? And I watched this figure walk in and I go, no fucking way. And my grandma goes, what? And goes, huh? Boyfriend, sorry. And my boyfriend goes, huh? And I go, give me a second. Cause like I'm not believing it. I'm like, you've gotta be shitting me. And I go, hello? No response. And I walk over and I look into this open doorway of the den. There is no one in there. It is a small den. Like, I shit you not, it is this space, essentially. Like, it's not big at all. And I'm reeling. I have never seen an apparition in my life. Ever. Like, that's not what I get. That's not what I don't see that stuff. And I walk into the kitchen again next to the living room, and I must have been pale or something. And I'm just kind of laughing, really concerned. And they're like, are you okay? And Grandma goes, what is it? And I went, I just saw someone walking into the office and no one's there. And she nonchalantly, you have to understand, my grandma has never talked like this. She nonchalantly crosses her legs again, looks at the TV and goes, oh, that's just Grandpa. And I went, huh? And she goes, yeah, it's just Grandpa Rick. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, what do you mean it's Grandpa Rick? But that's what walked in the office. She goes, why do you think I never go in there? How was I supposed to know this? And then when we went up to the ranch the next day, my grandma was like, tell your aunts what you saw. And I was like, okay, they're not gonna fucking believe me. My family on my dad's side does not talk about this shit. Like, I'm not making this up. They don't talk about this shit. So I'm over there and they're all like, he's still there? I for sure thought the energy would have drained away by now. And I'm just sitting there with my mouth open going, y'all knew? Like, what? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. As I said, my name is Cupcake Lover Gone Bad, aka your ever odd host, CJ. And I am so thankful that you guys decided to join me, whether you're just a friend, you're a family member, whatever. I enjoy your company. I enjoy the fact that I get to tell a story. Like I said, I'm a storyteller through and through. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I massively appreciate it. Thank you guys. Bye. I'm scared but excited. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it for y'all. For whoever does find this, if it's just the mass of wanderings and you just need a spooky story to hear, like, put this on. Like, you don't need to see any visuals if you don't want to. Like, but man, something's happening. I'm gonna try not to mess with this, but like, really uncomfortable. So, if I'm like doing something weird, I'm gonna try and like stop myself, and then we might be able to cut it, but I can't guarantee that. So, I just use floss too. I felt like I was missing out on sleep If what? So I'm looking back at this. My suffering. Stop it. And when I didn't catch all of like my footage of like me actually telling this story from previously, I'm, I did catch all of my complaining when I was trying to find the archways, and it's just a 10 out of 10. I had to figure out like where I'd left off, like where it cut me, like where I cut myself. And I'm like, fuck. Okay, good thing this isn't going in the video.